So friends, the Colorado Supreme Court just heard arguments regarding whether Donald Trump should be removed from the state ballot for engaging in insurrection. And now we wait. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, the Colorado Supreme Court heard arguments today as to whether Donald Trump should be barred, prohibited from being on the Colorado state ballot for the 2024 presidential election. Now, recall that Colorado Judge Sarah Wallace ruled after a trial that Donald Trump did in fact engage in insurrection, but Judge Wallace concluded that the 14th Amendment's disqualification of insurrectionists might not include the office of the presidency. Well, both Donald Trump and the voters of Colorado who brought the suit have appealed to the Colorado Supreme Court. And here is the new reporting, this from Politico, about today's argument before the Colorado Supreme Court. Headline: Colorado's top court offers few hints on whether it will remove Trump from ballot. And that article begins, the Colorado Supreme Court spent 2 hours on Wednesday debating Donald Trump's role in the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, but the court gave little indication of how it will rule on the ultimate question before it, whether Trump's actions that day preclude him from running for president in 2024. Several of the court's 7 justices, all Democratic appointees, appeared to agree, at least, with the trial court's conclusion that the January 6th attack amounted to an insurrection. They sharply questioned the contention from Trump's lawyer that the violence didn't last long enough, cover a wide enough area, or involve enough deadly weapons to qualify as an insurrection. This from one of the judges, quote, as to insurrection, why isn't it enough that a violent mob breached the Capitol when Congress was performing a core constitutional function? Judge William Hood III said, noting he was setting aside Trump's culpability. In some ways, that seems like a poster child for insurrection. The comments from Judge Hood and other justices suggest that the Colorado Supreme Court could be the first top state court to officially recognize the attack as an insurrection, a key legal determination as courts and election officials in numerous states grapple with the challenges to Trump's eligibility under the 14th Amendment, which bars candidates from holding public office if they engaged in an insurrection after taking an oath to support the Constitution. Again, this from the judge. If we were to say that President Trump can't be on the ballot here, there is a very high probability the United States Supreme Court would step in and decide, Hood said. A Denver judge ruled last month that Trump did in fact incite the January 6th insurrection, but that he was nevertheless able to remain on the ballot because it's not clear that the 14th Amendment's ban applies to the office of the president. The Colorado Supreme Court is weighing the appeal of that ruling. And friends, I love this. This is from the lawyer arguing the case for Donald Trump. Trump's attorney, former Colorado Secretary of State Scott Gessler, said there isn't a clear definition of the term insurrection, and that the entire issue isn't something the courts can fairly resolve. But he said that if pressed, he would contend that the January 6 violence was not an insurrection, but rather a 3-hour riot targeted at a single building. Okay, friends, can we go back for a minute? Donald Trump's lawyer, this guy, argues the following. It can't be an insurrection because it only lasted 3 hours. It was just a 3-hour riot. I didn't hear him offer any authority, any law, any precedent saying, insurrection? It's got to last, 3 hours and 15 minutes, maybe 3:30, in order to actually be an insurrection. But wait, his arguments get even more frivolous. He said because the attack targeted a single building, it can't be an insurrection. Well, now wait a minute. That building wasn't a Starbucks, right? Donald Trump didn't order his supporters, his foot soldiers, his angry mob to go to 6th and East Streets, Northwest Washington, D.C., and attack a Starbucks. No, he directed them to a single building, yes, the single building in which Joe Biden's election win was being certified and his, Donald Trump's, election loss was being certified. That's why Donald Trump told his angry foot soldiers, the boots of the insurrection, march to the Capitol, fight like hell or you won't have a country anymore. Now stop the certification, stop the steal. And they obeyed. So to Trump's lawyer, I say, come on, sport, you're going to have to do better than that. It can't be an insurrection because it only lasted 3 hours and it only targeted one building, the building where Trump's loss was being certified. Well, friends, we will get a ruling out of the Colorado Supreme Court fairly quickly, I think, because the judges during the argument talked about the need to resolve this quickly. And then, inevitably, regardless of how the opinion comes down, somebody will appeal. If Trump is banned from the ballot, courtesy of the Colorado Supreme Court opinion, he undoubtedly will try to get the Supreme Court to accept review of that ruling. And if the people of Colorado lose, if the voters lose, if the American people lose, and the Supreme Court of Colorado rules that it's just fine for Trump the insurrectionist to run for office again, notwithstanding that he's disqualified under the 14th Amendment, then I have to believe that the people of Colorado will seek to have that opinion reviewed by the United States Supreme Court. And of course, what the Supreme Court will do is anybody's guess. You know, I have maintained for a while now that I think the Supreme Court is unlikely to rule in a way, to do anything that would facilitate an aspiring dictator's return to power. Facilitate Donald Trump, who just announced, he just reinforced for us all in an interview, I'll be a dictator on day one. You know, if the Supreme Court facilitates the return of Donald Trump to presidential power, aspiring dictator that he's announced he will be, well, the Supreme Court might as well kiss their supreme status goodbye. Because a dictator has absolutely no interest in a Supreme Court. An inferior court, yes, but helping Donald Trump regain presidential power would be the Supreme Court working against its own interests, its own supreme status, and I don't think they're inclined to do that because they seem to love their supreme status, don't they? A certain block of Supreme Court justices, they love being above the law. They love operating under no mandatory code of ethics, don't they? When they were asked to put a code of ethics in place that would govern the conduct of the justices, what did they do? They didn't issue a code of ethics. They issued a pamphlet of suggestions. Supreme Court justices should avoid financial conflicts and entanglements. They don't have to, right? Doesn't say they shall, doesn't say they must, doesn't say there's any punishment if they do, simply that they should You know, if they feel like it. And we know that justices like Alito and Thomas never feel like it, and they're not required to, based on the newly issued pamphlet of suggestions for Supreme Court justices. So I think so poorly of that block of Supreme Court justices that I believe they will find a way to decline to reinstall Donald Trump into the White House, to give him the reins of government back, to give him presidential power again so he can do away with the Supreme Court if he chooses, because he said not only will he be a dictator on day one, what a wonderful joke he made there. He's not joking, friends. But he also said he's willing to terminate the Constitution, if it stands in his way. So yes, we'll wait and see what the Colorado Supreme Court says, and then we will count on the Supreme Court to at least act from a place of self-preservation, preserving its own supreme status, and decline to help Donald Trump regain the power of the presidency. But friends, one way or another, however we get there, keeping insurrectionists out of our federal government, out of public office, out of power, like justice, matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.